No, in all honesty, I had no idea what was going to happen. And if I could go back and stop it from happening, damn right I would. Of course. I tried to stop things before they got crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I was telling people, leave the cops alone. Like the people that are at the barricades, that are kind of shaking the barricades and yelling at the cops. I was like, dude, leave them alone. We're law enforcement's friend. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what I think, this is just my opinion, what I think really did it, like when I look back on it, is when the cops threw like tear gas bombs and concussion grenades into the crowd. And that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah. Yeah. You went into the Capitol and you offered to help the police officers. Then what happened?
Well, after we were out of the building, people came up to me and they had their phones. They're like, dude, you went viral. You're all over Twitter. So like by the time I got out of the building, I was already all over the world.
But when you were inside the Capitol, you weren't violent at all.
No.
What did they charge you with?
Quite the antithesis of it, actually. Well, I was charged with rioting, obstruction of an official proceeding, parading on Capitol grounds, trespassing, and all that other stuff. What I pled guilty to was the strongest of all the charges, which was the obstruction of an official proceeding.
So 5 months earlier, 6 months earlier, May 2020, there was an official proceeding at the White House that was obstructed when leftist rioters burned down buildings at the White House, burned down St. John's Church, attempted to kill Donald Trump, harmed 400 different officers or Secret Service agents, and all those charges were dropped. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting is I've heard that from whistleblower FBI agents, that have talked on the undercurrent, the independent media, that when they were trying to investigate BLM and Antifa as an organization, as a terrorist organization, they were told from the higher ups that they were not allowed to.
Doesn't surprise me.
That they are basically exempt from investigation.
I mean, so you need foot soldiers, right, in your political movement, and I believe that the FBI is clearly, and the deep state is clearly aligned with a leftist progressivism, neo-Marxism. And you have to have the change agents in the street in order to facilitate that. It's strange. I mean, how powerful are these people that Mark Milley, who walked out after they cleared in front of the White House, I mean, they just tried to kill the president. I mean, that's a real insurrection. By definition, insurrection is attempting to kill a president, a leader, attempting to hurt or harm, doing it in a violent manner. So they insurrected at the White House because they were trying to kill Donald Trump. I mean, they say it on camera. And they damn near succeeded. They took the president to a bunker, right? And Mark Milley had to, he apologized for like coming out against that.
Yeah.
He apologized.
Yeah.
You were in the military.
I was.
Yeah. How long?
2 years.
And why did you sign up?
Because I wanted to serve God and country. But the funny thing is about the military is it's a whole lot more glamorous on the outside looking in than the inside looking out. And after a while, you kind of come to realize, like, there's some really dumb people in charge. How did you make it? And then the thing is, but here's on the other side, there's actually some really good people in the military, some awesome people, awesome leadership, really awesome people. And they make it better. They make it, they make all the difference.
Stephen Sund is out doing interviews with Tucker, saying that he called and called and called. No one picked up. Nobody tried to defend the Capitol. That there were feds everywhere. Feds were crawling, crawling everywhere was his own terminology. And at some point, it seems like you were set up, right? Like, it seems like this was an entrapment plot designed to flip a narrative, right? The same way that if Donald Trump had lowered the gates at the White House, it would have flipped the narrative forever. There would have been no defense, right? That they burned down the White House. This seems like an entrapment plot. And Tucker's footage of you, obviously, Tucker's report on all of this, it's not what we think. It's all been a lie in order to facilitate a narrative that has been very, very helpful to the progressive left. Do you see that as, do you agree with that? Do you agree that you were set up on January 6th?
Well, the thing is, nobody can make me do anything. That was my choice to go into that building. But the funny thing is God took their little plan and turned it on itself. You know what I mean? And because the thing is that it was like, where's Waldo? You know what I'm saying? Like I was Waldo, and and
Yes.
everybody was kind of tracking me, and because
Yes.
they made me the straw man for
Yes.
that day, the poster boy,
Yes.
and then they painted all of this narrative kind of around this shock and awe campaign that they used my image as like the backbone of. And then when that footage came out, it's like that whole thing just fell apart. And I find it very difficult to believe that the J6 committee, for example, didn't comb through all of the footage from that day to see what it is that I did so that they could find something damning. I find it very difficult to believe that they didn't see the cops escorting me around the building. You know what I mean? I find it very difficult to believe that they didn't look and see the situation and go, well, dang, we just have to use this picture. Right. And now we find out that Trump has subpoena power, and lo and behold, oh, all the J6 committee's evidence it's gone. Why? Mike, the question I keep coming back to is, what would evidence of government corruption look like? What would it look like? Would it look like deleting 33,000 emails and no justice, no charges? Would it look like 10% for the big guy? Would it look like foreign proxy wars that act like money laundering machines? Would it look like foreign wars that place public money into private hands? Would it look like erasing or deleting a bunch of evidence that was collected and then was used to weaponize against the people or against Donald Trump? Now he can't use it for subpoena power. What would evidence of corruption look like? You know what I mean? Would it look like being able to shoot a sitting president in broad daylight on live television and then brushing it under the rug like what happened with JFK? How long has this been going on? I mean, JFK was talking about a tightly knit, highly efficient machine a long time ago. It combines military, diplomatic, scientific, economic, and political operations. He also said, we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasions, on subversions instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Look what happened with Antifa and BLM. Guerrillas by night, no armies by day, right? So if we look at that speech and even just that little bit of dialogue, that little bit of the monologue, it's like very telling when we bring it to today and say, oh my gosh, like how long has this been going on? And how bad have things really gotten?
I would never say that, of course, somebody pushed you into the cat, right? Like nobody forced your hand there, but they can lower gates. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they didn't lower the gates.
Like if there was 20,000 National Guard troops in front of the Capitol, you weren't getting into the Capitol, right? They could have prevented you from entering the Capitol and any human being from entering the Capitol. That is obviously within their power. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 15 years. And this is like they can.
I'm sorry to hear that.
They can lock down. Well, not anymore, thank God. Not anymore. And I want to get to that. I want to get to how satanic the city has become because there's dark energy in that place. It needed a lot of shamanism in Washington. I suppose all I'm trying to say here is not necessarily that you are a victim of somebody like taking you and forcing you into something, but that you are a victim of the circumstances that allowed for the Capitol to be breached and opened up and not secured. And we know for a fact, this is like just a known fact, that Nancy Pelosi did not pick up the phone call for 80 minutes.
Right.
80 minutes when she could have instantly ordered the Capitol to be locked down. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
And those cops were left alone. Like 20 cops were left out there with hooliganism, obviously, that both you and I decry. Clearly, never ever hit a cop, never punch a cop, never fight a cop. But in a situation like that, clearly, like things go sideways, and it seems as though that you are a victim, and actually were a chosen figurehead, poster boy, because they needed somebody who looked a little scary,
shocking.
Yes, a little scary for their narrative. Meemaw with the little American flag doesn't quite fit the narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see myself as a victim. I refuse that label. I see myself as a victor. because it didn't. What happened to me didn't destroy me. It just made me a stronger spirit. It just made me a stronger human being. I I believe that time is the currency of the universe. Your attention is your currency. And what you choose to do with your attention and what you choose to do with your time. So you can either invest it, you can either spend it, or you can waste it. So I chose to invest my time into self-development. I chose to invest it in becoming a better, stronger human being, a better, stronger man, invest it into making the world a better place, no matter where it was that I was at. Circumstances don't make the man. They simply reveal him to himself. Pictius. And Seneca said, it is not what you endure, but how you endure it that matters. And so for me, I'm not a victim. You're only a victim if you choose to be a victim. I am a victor. That I'm a winner, not a loser. You know what I'm saying? And no matter what the circumstances are, I'm going to win, baby. Because that's who I am. You know what I mean?
Kamala Harris said that this is like our like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, September 11th, January.
You know what's funny about that though, is that they completely ignore the Weather Underground bombing the Capitol, which that was their side. Oh, and by the way, Bill Ayers, yeah, he got appointed. Not only did he get a pardon from Obama, but he got appointed to something like the Department of Education or something in the Obama White House.
That's right.
Also, there was I think it was in the 50s or the 60s, there was a bunch of Puerto Ricans that stormed the Capitol and shot Congress members. Mm-hmm. But these things don't get mentioned. Mm-hmm. These, to me, are terrible things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Where's the history?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like literally, like 3,000 people died on 9/11. Mm-hmm. Okay. And literally hundreds of thousands of people were affected, families, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And like literally hundreds, if not thousands of people have died of like cancer and stuff because of all the soot and all the crap from the buildings and stuff like that, asbestos and stuff that went into the air, you know? So what these people do, this is psychological warfare 101. They combined trigger words with trigger images, okay? And they use these trigger words and these trigger images together to craft a narrative that will create an emotional response in the subconscious portion of the brain, right? And if you can linguistics, language, program the neurons in the brain, in the subconscious portion of the brain, then you can end up affecting a person's conscious perception of reality. So trigger words and trigger images are used, combined together to create an emotional response that programs the subconscious portion of the brain so that they can then control how people see the world consciously. You see? So insurrection, violence, deadly, white supremacy, 9/11, terrorism. These are all trigger words. And if all they're doing is showing people in these chaotic fits of emotion on January 6th outside the building, or if they're showing an image of a dude in horns and face paint inside the building, and then they're combining all these trigger words with these trigger images, then the narrative can be crafted, especially when they throw in like the QAnon label, because the media literally was in like a year-long campaign of QAnon is this, white supremacist, terrorist, conspiracy theorist, all these things. So QAnon is a fiction created by the media. And then they label all these other things below it. You see what I'm saying?